forward, follow me. If I hesitate, push me. If they, him may kill me, avenge me. If I am a traitor, kill me.
Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock. We're on a mission. Each one of us shares our own vision. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. While I patrolled the streets, all the G's on me. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. While I patrolled the streets, all the G's on me.
Saludos, welcome back. You already know it's your host, Gabe Morales. We've been covering Nuestra Familia members over the past 6 decades or so. We'll continue with the G last names. There was a guy that I met once named Gangsta Gonzalez from Avenal, and he posed for me, as seen here, at a family party I attended, whereby I was invited by the president of the Chicano Correctional Workers Association at Sac Folsom. I was the vice president at the time. And, of course, I never feared for my safety as El Presidente was there. This guy was his brother's son, thereby his nephew. But I thought that was kind of interesting, so I thought I'd share that with you. There was a William Gonzalez, who's affiliated with the NF at CIM in the late 1970s, under B number 83234. And I understand when he was at CIM, he was killed by MA assassin Kilroy Roybal and John Rabaca after a movie was shown at the Chino prison on May 14, 1977.
You too. Buzzard. Want to make something out of it?
There was Fernando, a.k.a. Fernie Gonzalez from Temple Street, who I believe had J number 26515. This guy was interviewed in the L.A. County Jail. I was told when he was interviewed that he was at San Quentin also in 1968, when the Nuestra Familia Mexicana was still in its infancy. And what tripped me out, as seen here, is there was a black hand, but with an N inside of it. I think at that time, a lot of these prison gangs were still experimenting with symbols. As I've shown in previous pictures, the sombrero with the machete and the blood dripping off it was not yet implemented until around 1972 after Charlie Mosca Castillo was killed. There was a Carlos Sainz Gonzalez, a.k.a. Carlitos, from West Side San Juan. I show he was associated with the NF and DVI in the mid-70s under B number 39847, and obviously was heavily involved, as seen in these pictures. Understand that he paroled in 1984, but like many of these guys, continued to have drug issues. And even later on at Corcoran State Prison after it opened, and I understand he ended up getting hit by a car in Modesto, ran over and killed. I.S. Hammer Gonzalez from, say it ain't so, Morales, Southside Mampton in Washington State. He was part of a gang called Norteño Early Mark. Yes, I realize Early Mark is down in Calipas, but we had a faction of Early Mark that moved up in the late 1980s to Washington State. And they've had quite a few Northern Structure members over the years. Hammer, a.k.a. Fame, ended up getting popped for dope and sent to the BOP under number 11961-085. He was housed at the Coleman facility in 2009, where he associated with NF and NS heavyweights, as seen in this picture. I heard that he was indicted on a RICO case around the year 2013 and is currently held at USP Tucson and scheduled for release in the year 2025. There's a Jesse Hammer Gonzalez from San Juan, but also had ties to the Chino Sinners. I remember this guy from New Folsom Violence Control Unit around 1991, where he had C number 94291. I remember he told me that they wanted him to debrief, but that he could not do so. I think maybe it was his pride stopping him from doing that, because evidently he was in bad standings as he was hit there and later on housed in Mule Creek State Prison, which is known as a DO facility. I believe he's no longer in custody. I gotta say, I kind of like this guy. So Jesse, if you're out there, best of luck to you. There was Robert Luis, aka Huicho Gonzalez from San Juan. He was a very active NS member in the 1980s and then became involved with the NF at Pelican Bay prior to Operation Black Widow under D number 7686. But I understand this guy's head got a little too big, as he was bragging to Mexican mafia members that he was going to extort all the Sureño hoods. Understand that he was housed at San Quentin in 2012, but was deemed no good for refusing an order by Corny Tristan. I think maybe he was doing a little bit of too much of his own product, but he kind of went local after that. Understand he was dealing dope out on the calles after that, even though he was unauthorized and not kicking back to the NF Carnales. Understand that he fled down to Mexico, where allegedly he was working with the cartels along the San Diego-Tijuana border, but I heard was murdered by a Sureño down in that area. There was Frank, a.k.a. Horse Govea Hernandez, who operated a San Juan, but also a Salinas East Market area. He did YA time as far back as 1974. He then was popped on a robbery charge in 1980, whereby he was given C number 16550. I showed that he paroled in 1982, but then got popped on a dope charge in 83 and was sent back to CDC. He was housed at San Quentin in 1984, where he got an assault by prisoner charge. We show he paroled in 1987, but got multiple parole violations for about a decade after that. He then got a grand theft charge in 2003, whereby he was given T numbers in Thomas 98080. What I show was off that number by at least the year 2008. There's Joseph, aka Jojo Graciano, out of the greater Stockton area. I showed that he was an NF associate in the mid-80s under C number 97557, but I believe was only validated as being a Nuestra Raza associate by CDC in 1995, when he had E number 97551. I showed that he was housed in Solano in 1999 and Pelican Bay Shoe from the year 2000 through the year 2012, and I show is currently housed at Solano State Prison. There was Alfred, a.k.a. Bugsy Granados, out of Little Valley, which is the same barrio that the first padre of the NFM, John Valdez, was from. I showed that Bugsy had a B number of 41449, so very likely knew Little John. I showed he was involved with the NF in the mid-1970s, but had become a hermit at Soledad by 1976. There was Robert Lee, a.k.a. Lee Granton, out of Ceres in the Modesto area. I show he was housed at CRC in 1983 and then came back with a dope case in 1989, whereby he was given E number 12048. He was housed at Corcoran in 1989 through 1990 and then released, but had parole violations from 1994 to 1997. He paroled in 1997, whereby he was involved in the making of the Gun CD, which involved artists from groups like Darkroom Familia. Now here's the thing. Per the California Gang Task Force in 1998, and I have hard documentation on that, he was only validated as being a Northern Structure associate. According to him, he was an NF captain at that time, but he too was extorted by the NF, including by Happy Cervantes and Spider Favela. And once again, my question is this. If Lee Granton was such a high-ranking member, one of the highest prison gang members ever, then how was it that he was being extorted by NF members of lower rank than him? That just never made sense to me. Supposedly, his book, The Rise and Fall of the Nuestra Familia, is the only true story of that violent prison gang. However, I found many discrepancies in it, especially prior to the time period he was involved, and obviously was schooled wrong on some of the history of the NF. I told people this at the time, but he was making the talk show circuits to law enforcement, just like Lizard Hernandez was. And I think a lot of people didn't want to hear it and were nervous that I might jeopardize Operation Black Widow, when the International Latino Gang Investigators Association was just getting off the ground at that time. And man, I caught a lot of heat behind some of the stuff I was questioning. But I've always done that. If you notice on the show, I try to go off of facts, off the record, off of C-files, off of court documents. But there's some things that can't be proven that still make me scratch my head. So I hope you hear what I'm saying in that regards. Guerrero ended up getting popped several times for dope, as well as alien smuggled in the year 2004. He was busted for possession of stolen property in 2006, and was housed at Tehachapi for a couple of years. He caught parole violations in 2007 and was even busted down to LA. I believe he was then housed at Richard J. Donovan in September 2007 and died less than a year later while traveling down Highway 14 going south. I'm not trying to make fun of his death because I know he is very much loved by his family, who are very involved even to this day in Westside Modesto as Wicked West riders. There was Steven, aka Pina Green from Sacra. I showed that he was a Northern Structure member in the 1990s under J number 17982. He paroled in 2012 and then came back into custody, where I understand he climbed up the ladder and I believe was undercover NF. He had several parole violations, and I show is currently housed at Solano State Prison. There was Raul, aka Lalo Grijalba from Salas. I show he was affiliated with the NF in the 1980s, and I believe had a C number. I show he was released from custody, but then came back under F numbers in Frank 26109. I show that he was housed at CTF Soledad in 2012, but is currently not in custody. There was Robert, aka Lobo Gudino. I show he was an NF member in the 1980s under C number 25747. It is my understanding that he hit Andy Chino Flores from Stockton's Little Unity at San Quentin and was murdered in 1984 by La M. There was a Jerry Shady Guerra from Hazard, which is now known as the M Stronghold in the Ramona Gardens housing project. I showed that he was NF in the mid-1970s under B number 60120. He was only validated as being NF by 1979. I showed that he was housed at CMF Vacaville in 2012, and I'm unsure what happened to him, but show he's no longer in custody. If alive, he'd be 70 years old. There's David Weasel Guerrero from Fresno. I'm not sure what his CDC number was, but I have notes that he was involved in the May 1977 Bakersfield raid to take out NFM founder Chalo Hernandez and rode down with Sammy Venegas to do the job as ordered by Babo Sosa and Death Row Joe. That mission was unsuccessful, but people were hit in the hits in spring and fall of that year. There was Jesus, aka Chuy Guerrero, San Francisco Mission District. I showed that he was involved in a murder in 1992 and given J number 55008. He was housed at Pelican Bay SHU in 1993, but was only validated as being a Northern Structure. Understand that he was housed at San Quentin in 2002 and was made a regimental commander in 2005. I believe he came back to San Quentin AC in 2011 and 2013 under A numbers at Apple. K is in Kite 4528. And was considered to be a right-hand man of John Boxer Mendoza, who is from the same hood. His brother was Ruben, aka Chino Guerrero. He's another one who I believe was NF, but was only validated as being Northern Structure in the year 2003 by CDC. He had T number as in Thomas 56900 and understand parole by the year 2009. There was a Joshua Guevara, known as Chacho, and also Chachi, from Salas. I show that he was an NSOL by at least 1998, but was only validated as a Northern Structure Associate in 2004 under P number 56029. I show that he was part of a RICO case, but had parole by the year 2012. There was Patrick Snake Guhin. He was NF in the mid-1970s as a lieutenant in the Babo Sosa car under B number 26794. I showed he was validated by CDC in 1979 and that he was off that B number by 1997, but was rearrested later and incarcerated in the Santa Clara County Jail, which is where this mugshot was taken. There was Antonio Chucuguien from San Ho. I was told Barrio Littletown. I show he was Northern Structure in the early 90s with an E number. He then was released and was involved in supervising the Bamba Viramontes hit that I spoke about previously in April of 1999. I understand that Chuco then was made NF and worked under Skip and Goose, and that he had a serious beef with Chavo Jacobs from Hayward, who had cooperated during Operation Black Widow. I also understand that he was then sent back to CDC with P number 81948, and I understand had a good connection with the Sinaloa cartel via then member in good standings Tigres Salinas around the year 2009. I show that he was a Pelican Bay shoe during the time of Operation Black Widow in C5 and remained there until the end of hostilities agreement was signed off on by himself and Conejo Perez. It was at that time that Chuco, DC Cervantes, and Conejo Perez decided that they were going to make their own overall governing body and make themselves generals, since they were allegedly incommunicado with the federal faction. The federal faction deny that. I'll have to get into all those movies in a different video, but obviously somebody's lying. He was let out of the shoe and housed at Salinas Valley State Prison, where he continued to assert his authority. He ended up being indicted with DC and Conejo on a new RICO case. And I show is housed in an undisclosed location, awaiting transfer to the federal BOP. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. There was Jonathan Guli, a.k.a. Neto, a.k.a. Raton, who I understand was originally from the Pittsburgh area and was the cousin of Daniel Lizard Hernandez. In fact, my understanding is it was Gurule who introduced Hernandez to the NF at San Quentin when he had D number 43309. I show that he was caught at Q in 1984 with some fileros. I show that he was cut loose, but popped in 1990, I believe, for a homicide case. Ended up catching almost 40 years on that one. I believe he was housed at one time at Tehachapi, and I'm not sure if it's connected to his cousin, but later on was put on disregard status. And I show he is currently no longer in custody. There was Scott, a.k.a. Jasper Guston, out of Sacra. I show that he was Northern Structure around the time of Black Widow and involved in meth sales. Understand also there were some questions over a gun and whether he had turned rata on that. Understand that he was put on freeze. In particular, Skip Villanueva was upset with him. But I show was given a disciplinary hit at Victorville in 2004. And my understanding is that at that point he was deemed good again. Under BOP number 02834-748. He was housed in Lompoc in 2008, and I understand hit some Sureños at that time at another facility, and even supposedly was involved in a murder on a Sureño celly. I have yet to see the documents on that. Evidently, the NF gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was housed with them at Lewisburg in 2012 and at Pollock in 2014 through 16, and has been seen in multiple pictures with NF members. I mean, what can he do? He's doing life and is presently housed at the Tucson facility, so may have thrown in the towel after all the back and forth. There was Adolf, a.k.a. Muggsy Gutierrez. I remember this guy very well as being Northern Structure in the early 90s in the Violence Control Unit at New Folsom. He had D number 21289, and I can tell was very down for the cause. But drugs got the best of him, like a lot of these guys, and I'm unsure of his status today. There's Angel, a.k.a. Evil Ways, a.k.a. Fish Gutierrez from Salas. I show that he was Nuestra Raza in the mid-1990s under E numbers in Edward 67342. I show he paroled in 1996, but got popped with a felon in possession of a firearm in 2004, which sent him to the BOP under number 99380-011. Understand he was housed at Lompoc in 2004, but was released in September 2008. There was Edward, a.k.a. Breeze Gutierrez, out of San Juan. I show that he was a Northern Structure in the 1980s under C number 67766 when he was convicted on a robbery beef in 1983 and housed at CMF Vacaville. Understand he got out and then was sent back to Vacaville. He then got out again, but was popped on multiple dope charges in the years after and finally recharged under P number 69478. I show that he was housed at Corcoran Shoe in the year 2012, but for the last few years has been housed at CMF Vacaville. There's Gabriel, a.k.a. Kermit Gutierrez, who was an insole by the late 1990s. Understand that he was involved in several shootings on behalf of the NF, specifically the Rico Garcia car, but I show is currently not in custody. Guadalupe, a.k.a. Bugs Gutierrez from San Fran. I show that he was Northern Structure in the 1980s under C number 72817 and was validated as such in 1991. But I show was off that C number by 1996 and I lost track of him. There was Anthony, a.k.a. Chico Guzman from San Juan. I show that he was Northern Structure in the 1980s under D number 56193. He was involved in a homicide in 1992, whereby I understand he was actually made NF and was named in the early 90s RICO case. I show he came back under K number 26148 and was involved in a war against Rico Smiley Garcia. There's Billy, a.k.a. Tomahawk Guzman from San Juan. I show that he was Northern Structure in the 1980s under C number 81003. but was only validated as such in 1996 by CDC. That showed that he was housed at Kern Valley State Prison in 2012 and is currently housed at Richard J. Donovan. And then we have the infamous Lorenzo, aka Lencho Guzman, out of San Juan Barrio Horseshoe. He was locked up in the YA in the early 80s, but had parole by 1984. And a lot of people couldn't understand why he was getting a pass. I understand at one time his girlfriend was Peggy Espino, also known as the Amazon Queen. He was a major dope dealer, mid-80s through late 90s, and soon gained a reputation as being much hated by the NF but for the way he played the game. He was validated as an NF associate in 1992 under E number as an Edward 90511. He was housed at San Quentin in the year 2000 and given an order by Skip Villanueva to hit Lucky Mendoza. And I understand that hit was passed around until he was finally hit. Sounds to me like nobody wanted to do it. Understand he also worked hand in hand with S Gonzalez around the year 2005 and was housed at Corcoran Shoe in 2006. Understand that he continued to politic, was out by the year 2012, and was labeled no good while he was housed at Pelican Bay. He was returned to custody in March of 2013 under A numbers in Apple. N as in Nancy, 7817. He was housed at Pelican Bay in 2021 and is currently housed at CMF Vacaville. And so that concludes the G names. I can't believe I got through it, but I'm going to put on my gafas and then get back to the H names. I hope you enjoyed these episodes and continue watching as we cover Nuestra Familia members over the past 6 decades or so. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians. If I go forward, follow me. If I hesitate, push me. If they, I may kill me, avenge me. If I am a traitor, kill me.
Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock. On a mission, each one of us shares our own vision.